Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Thriving LDS Singles Podcast. We're so excited to have Darren and Lorrain tell you their story of dating and marriage.
Here's our second part.
There's an art to dating, and I'm not talking about like dating, playing with people's lives. I'm talking about establishing healthy relationships, and what Lorraine said is so true, right? If we dated enough to know, or spent enough time talk together to know, hey, you know what, we're not a great fit, but oh, you know what, Lorraine, I know somebody that would be. And part of our relationship when we were together, we had conversations. Lorraine said to me, if there's anybody else you want to go date them. And likewise, I said, well, you know, would you be interested in this person or this person? She's like, no, right? And that just clears out any obstacles for us to be able to say, okay, how do we move forward in a very healthy way? And if people aren't committed to God first,
I love
and
that.
that's important to you, and I hope it's important to all of us, because the first great commandment is to love God. The second is to love our neighbor as ourselves. Well, you can't give someone something that you don't have. And so if we don't understand that we are lovable because we exist, not because of something that we did or didn't do, which is why the verbal vomit is also an unhealthy thing, because people are just trying to say, well, look at me, look how cool I am, or look how broke I am. I'm broken is a better word, right? Because some people think broke means you don't have any money.
Could be all of those.
Exactly.
So you touched a little bit on this. It sounds kind of like you evolved to being exclusive or making the decision that you don't want to date anyone else. Did you have a actual discussion about that, or how did that play out in your relationship?
Well, we did. And because of my calling, and I'm sure it's for really sweet reasons, were always interested in if I was dating and who I was dating, and I never looked like I was dating anyone ever. And because I didn't want everybody
Did you feel like you had to protect that a little bit because of your
a
calling?
lot of it. Yeah. Yeah. Quite a bit. People sweetly were interested and would ask questions all the time. And so I did protect that. And I knew that I was never going to look like I was with anyone until I knew for sure. And so we did have that conversation at a conference. Was it a conference? I'm trying to remember.
Multiple conversations over time as appropriate. Do we want to spend time with just each other? Do we want to date other people? And what would that look like as we move forward? The family of proclamation, I know most people think, oh, that's successful marriages and families. Well, if you think about it, successful relationships, whether that's parent-child, whether that's spouse relationships, whether that's dating relationship. And so I encourage people to look at those 9 principles and ask, where am I with these 9 principles? Because successful marriages, successful parent-child, successful divorces. I know that sounds kind of crazy, right? But my good friend, Dr. Paul, told me that. He's like, he congratulated me. Let me be the first to congratulate you on your divorce, right? He wasn't celebrating that I was divorced. He's just saying, hey, you know what? This happened for you. I'm inserting that word. What are you going to do now? If you're committed to God and the process, are you going to keep going to church? Are you going to keep your temple covenants? Are you going to do all those things? And again, that was a big part of my intentionality and my belief that that's how we move forward. And so that's a great place. A lot of people are like, well, I don't even know where to start. The Family Proclamation is a fabulous document. It has inspired every prophet, seer, and revelator since 1995 has quoted it multiple times. It's one of the most quoted documents, most quoted scriptures in the church. Well, there's a reason. It's because the attack on families is huge. And so anybody who hasn't been married, anybody who's been married and divorced, even people who have been widowed, I mean, we all can understand better how to have great relationships by understanding that truth.
Yeah.
We did have multiple conversations about just mostly because of my calling, and I'm just going to share this because from my vantage point, I can see, oh, they broke up, and oh, I hope that didn't last long, right? From my vantage point. And I just wanted to be more careful and intentional before I got into that place. And so
It's an issue, isn't it? Lots of divorced people are concerned about, like, I don't want to do that again. That hurt. Let's not do that again.
yeah, that was definitely my intention.
Yeah.
There was no way.
We don't have paparazzi, but we have so many people that watch,
Yes.
so many people that ask.
Yeah.
You know, when I showed up in the single scene, a lot of the people that I saw were people I recognized. Like I said, I've been here 57 years, and many of them had taken the Jerks class from me.
Well, he also has been a bishop twice. So there were a few people confused, like, well, hang on.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, Bishop, what are you doing here in the singles group, right? Yeah, these things don't go together. Yeah.
It's one thing people forget that, you know, everybody's going to actually end up in the singles group one
Yes,
way or
one way or another.
That's right.
very rare that two people will die at the same time. So it's
For sure.
True.
it's sort of somehow seen as this other program, but you know, everybody's actually going to be.
Yep.
But let's talk about the marriage bit now, so that you've got, like, you did all the dating, you did it nicely, you got there, made the decision to get married. How did that go? Yeah.
It was really great. I didn't want some huge old grand gesture. But so many of the first time we held hands was in the temple in the prayer circle. And the first time he said he loved me is when we were walking away from the prayer circle, which was really not fair. But it was really sweet.
Very safe of you, Darren.
Yeah. What in the world? In front of everybody, right? You're turning around and, oh my goodness, because he said it right behind my head. It was really sweet, memorable. It was really sweet, but yeah. And then even, I know, to share this, people roll their eyes because our first kiss was actually in the celestial room. It was heavenly. No, it wasn't like that. It was just this very sweet little. What was that?
This is many months later, isn't it? This is not.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, so that 90 days, we should probably talk about that, because people go, oh, did you go from not touching to, to making out on the couch? No, that is not what we did. It had been so sweet. Our first date was actually here in my house, and because I wanted to learn how to dance. He teaches the country swing, and I didn't know country swing. And so we went to dinner and came back and did country swing. Well, this is the first time we're touching. It was so weird. I'd see him dancing with other women and go, that is not fair, right? Yeah, it wasn't fair. Anyway, it was still great. But yeah, just to not hurry anything. And to have and to just be, to go from that to dancing to snuggling and holding hands. And so we waited, I don't know, before our first kiss. It wasn't right away. I was kind of worried it might change things, not for the better. And I don't know. I go, this is so good. What happens? Because I don't know. Sometimes that happens. So but I'm here to say it was great. So yeah.
I second that. One of the things that I think made it so good was that we talked about it.
We didn't talk about scheduling it. Let's just put it that way.
No. I mean, there's,
On this day, we're going to have a little kiss, and then on this day, we'll have a kiss.
Yeah, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. So that's not how that happened.
But we talked about the level of commitment for where we are, and what does it mean to hold hands, and what does it mean to kiss, and what does it mean to sit close in a movie, or what does all of that mean? What does it mean to go to church together? What does it mean to be at a family party, right? And how are we going to talk about that? And because of Lorraine's calling, and certainly I respect that. Right? She's never showed up at a single event with a date. And so we were coming up on the Christmas. Yeah, it was the Christmas dance. Oh. And I said to Lorraine, I said, look, if we're at the dance, I want to be with you. And I wouldn't be really happy if you're dancing with anybody else. And so we had a discussion. Well, what would that look like? Because I said, even though I'm on the committee, I will be there. I will fulfill my calling, but I'll just stay in the kitchen. I'll do behind the scenes stuff. I just won't be out at the dance if that's uncomfortable for you. And again, if we really understand what love is, and one of my favorite definitions is that doing love means we do the best thing for others, which will always be the best thing for us. So doing love is doing the best thing for others. So if I'm going to do the best thing for Lorraine, I'm going to respect that this is her calling. There's a lot of people that watch her. And will that be the best thing for me? Yeah, because if I respect her and we agree that that's the best thing, when I said I love you in the temple, I didn't say it so that Lorraine would go, oh, I love you too. As a matter of fact, after the temple, one of the things that after we walked out of the temple,
say that. Yeah.
Lorraine said, is it okay if I don't say I love you back? And I said, absolutely. I don't want you to say it if you don't feel it.
Because I'm only going to say what I'm only going to speak truth, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't in the same place he was.
Yeah.
I wasn't like a lot, but
that's right. So those are things that I think the time talk together prepared us to be able to say, where are we? What's that level of commitment? What does that mean to you? And am I comfortable with that? And if not, and no doesn't mean no, it means I might need more information. I might need more time. And when you can clearly say no, again, if I'm doing the best thing for others, then I'm going to tell you the truth. And if I get to a place where, hey, you know what, this doesn't work for me, then I'm going to be able to say why. And it's not a judgment. It's not, well, you do this and I don't like that. It's, I'm not comfortable with this. And so I would need to work through that, because a lot of times when there's a breakup, it's somebody saying, well, you're this or that, or you're not this or that. And that it doesn't have to be that. It does have to be, I think it should be. It doesn't have to be, it should be, I love and respect you. A peacemaker, as President Nelson says, is somebody who's going to speak the truth in the kindest, most Christ-like way. And Lorraine and I both had dated other people, and we had the need and the opportunity to say, hey, this relationship doesn't work for me. I'm happy to tell you why. If you want to hear that, if you don't, just know that I'm choosing out of this relationship because it is the best thing for both of us.
So the decision to get married, so as you said, you've both got children, and adult children presumably, so you've got to tell them, the family, as you introduce the family at your family event. How does that all go?
Well, I prepped my kids, right? And I prepped my kids. Well, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my family or my kids about Darren until the appropriate time. Didn't introduce him, didn't do any of that. And I think that's a healthy way to do that, right? Between he and I. And
what's the appropriate time? How did you decide what the appropriate time was when you say that?
I think when we got exclusive, when I knew that this is such a good man for me, and I've never had a relationship like this. It's never been like this. And I felt like it was heaven sent. And so when I knew we were going to be exclusive, when I knew that, I was in December, I was with a group of women, and they always like to hear my dating stories, right?
Yeah.
And this is a fantastic group of women who I met through a women's conference, for BYU Women's Conference, and we meet every year. And I said, when they wanted to hear some of my stories, I said, actually, ladies, I think I might have met my husband. And I hadn't said that out loud to anybody else, to them. And what's funny is two of them already knew him, and they went, oh, I know Darren Johansen, and he's so great. And so it was crazy. It was just crazy. But I felt early on. And so I just talked to my kids individually. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't do any of that. and my siblings wanted to get to know him because they knew I was getting serious, and they've been on this journey with me and such a great loving support. And then, but I talked with each of my kids individually and just said, I think this is the man. And my daughter, who's ultra protective, said, well, Mom, I'm going to use your words. Why him? Why, out of all the men on the planet, why him? Because that's what I asked my kids. So why him? And so that was how I eased my kids into this. And of course they wanted to meet him. And I will say that my boys did a background check on him.
I love that.
Because they love their mama, and they wanted to make sure. I mean, that was pretty loving, I think. And
I'm
so
grateful they didn't find my prison record and yeah, all the other things, but
It's been
you know,
sealed by then, so
that's right. That's right.
you know, Lorraine brings up such an important thing, right? You need to know why you would want to be in an eternal relationship with that person. And if you can't answer those questions for yourself, then you're not in that kind of relationship. And so many people want to be in relationships that they jump in before they know. And it is so important to take the time. Eternity is a long time. And if you're not willing in your dating world to take time to find that out, then you're not likely going to have a really solid, healthy relationship. It's important. And we talked for months about, you know, how would our relationship affect our kids? And by our kids, I mean her kids and my kids, and now they're our kids, right? And that's how we feel. And I wanted to not have the first time that my children or her children, again, our children now, the first time they met me to be, oh, this is my fiance, right? And so we had long discussions about this, and we talked about it. We made plans. Because I had been sealed before, I invited Lorraine to come see my bishop with me. And I just said, Bishop, you know, if you and Lorraine need to talk, then, again, I'm not telling people that's what they have to do, but that level of openness and transparency, we sat with the bishop and counseled with him about when is a good time. Yeah, not just once, but when is a good time for us. And we did this with Lorraine's bishop as well, to move forward. If we're going to start that process and prepare to be sealed in the temple, what does that look like? And how should we do that? And, you know, and we discussed, how will this affect our children? How will this affect our former spouses? Again, because, you know, that is going to make a difference. And if we're listening to the prophet, you know, how do we maintain spiritual momentum? How are we peacemakers? Because just because we ended in divorce, remember, successful marriages and families, successful divorces, they operate on those 9 keys. And so we talked about, how do we do this in a way that truly is? It's one thing to say, what would Jesus do? It's another thing to live that way.
yeah. And you had some hiccups in the whole sealing decision, right?
Holy moly, Batman.
I think, oh, should I say this out loud? I think, and I just actually had a discussion with our Area 70. I don't know that the brethren understand what it feels like to be on this side of the desk and the difficulties that are there. Because it was a hard process when I went for my cancellation. And that's the thing. It's interesting. I had this impression, I wasn't dating anybody, remember? And I had this impression in the temple that I needed to get my cancellation. And I thought, I'm not even dating. What is that? And every time I'd go back, and then when I wasn't even thinking, it would be, you need to do that. And it took a year. And so, but then I was in this great place by the time that happened. And it was just for me and my sweet bishop. And when I went in, he said, my counsel is to not, but we need to, let's kneel and let's talk about this together. And so it was a slow process, and it was hard. There was a few hiccups in there. But what Darren went through it was I'm just gonna say it's awful. It's very hard. And we know we're not the only ones that have that story, because it was really difficult. And it is interesting to me that when you have a second marriage, people will just tell you, because we really wanted to be sealed. We really did. And it's something that we've been taught to do, I don't know, our whole life, right? Does it matter if it was our second marriage or our first marriage or second marriage? It's still the proper counsel. But yet we were being counseled, don't even worry about it. Just get sealed civilly. And some have to, and I get that. And everybody can make those choices. For us, that isn't something that we wanted to do. We wanted to be sealed. We truly did. And it was interesting to me how flippant, even from our leaders, just get, don't even worry about it. Yeah, but and that was difficult.
So one of the things I believe is so important, if you're intent on creating a celestial relationship, that you talk about that. And we talked so many times. And one time, Lorraine overheard me, and she wasn't spying on me, but I was talking to one of my friends, and I told her I was going to take this call anyway. I was talking to one of my friends, and I was talking about how frustrated I was with the process. And Lorraine told me later, she's like, I didn't know who that was. And so we discussed what, that anger and frustration, right? There is a process, but the Lord does have a plan. And so it was that day that we decided that we were going to not talk about all of the hard things, that we were going to set a date.
Because it was ruining the process.
Yeah.
It was ruining the joy
of being engaged. And so we set a date. I called the temple the next day and said, hey, we want to get a sealing date. So we scheduled it, even though we later found out that you're not supposed to do that until you have the sealing letter, excuse me. And from then on, I mean, the opposition intensified, but we had felt like we had prayed about it, and we felt like, hey, this is what we need to do. It wasn't a week from that day. It was months from that day. It was July 12th. And this is clear back in early April. And so and for some, that's too fast. It took 14 months for Lorraine's process to go through. Gratefully, it didn't take that long. We started in January, and we got a call from the temple.
3 days.
A week before, saying, hey, we never should have scheduled this. We're going to cancel this. And we begged and we prayed and we pleaded, and we're like, please hold on, please hold on. And that's one of those things that I would say to you, the Lord's going to test our faith. And I was doing everything that I knew to do, because I had been in bishoprics for years, and I'd been a bishop twice and served in a stake presidency. And I just thought, okay, what can I do? And so I made phone calls, and I exercised faith, and we talked to priesthood leaders. And I had so many people say, well, you should call the area presidency. If you have a number of the Quorum of 12, you should call them. Those are not the right things to do. Doing what you can do and exercising faith. And literally 3 days before our sealing, we got an approval. And the temple president who performed our sealing, I had talked with him, and he had given me some counsel. And again, I was faithful, right? He just because he's the temple president, he doesn't have any power over the first presidency or even over my bishop or stake president, but being faithful to that and just holding on. And it was a photo finish. We had our bishop prepared to perform a civil ceremony on the 11th, which is the day that we were having our reception. And so it worked out beautifully, because we were prepared for that. And because we wanted to include our children, I knew that Lorraine was very aware of that, as I was, but we wanted to do that. But I wanted to be sealed, and Lorraine wanted to be sealed. And so we really talked a lot about, should we be civilly married and then sealed? And it really was a miracle. And it's just such a beautiful story. Both. Yeah. But our goal was always to be sealed. And so because the bishop was there, because we already had the license, because everything was prepared at a very last minute, but I would say very spirit driven decision.
Sweet
Counsel
counsel
from our bishop. Your kids are here. They can participate in this. They won't be able to participate in your sealing. And so we made the decision, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. Lorraine found out.
Actually, yeah, because I told him it mattered more to him. And I said, I got to go get my wedding dress on. So you and the bishop, whatever you guys choose to do, just do it. I'm good. I did not know we were being actually married until I had walked up the aisle and was standing across from him. Yeah. Yeah. I go, we are. He goes, we're getting married right now. I didn't know, because we had practiced a whole ceremony, whether it would be legal or not. And I loved the way it turned out. I loved how he did it. So all my cute boys and my daughter, everybody could just be a part of it, and grandkids. And yeah, it was very sweet and inclusive, which is so important to me and for my kids to have that. And not only that, because of my calling, the last 2 hours, we invited all the single adults for a 2-hour dance party.
Wow.
Yeah, we just opened it up. I had so many people say, Lorraine, can we come to your reception? I think, oh, that's so sweet. Oh, how many hundreds are going to come to this thing? So we had like a 3-phased reception, but it was just this all-out fun party. It was sweet. It just got bigger and bigger as the night went on. And so it was just sweet and inclusive. I loved it. And then to quietly wake up the next day and just go to the temple and leave the temple quietly, it was just absolutely perfect.
I have goosebumps.
Yeah, it all honestly, the entire time, it's just been so sweet and so spirit driven from the beginning. But he came in really intentional. I was getting into a place like that, right? And I knew what I wanted and needed. And so, yeah, it was really sweet. And honestly, here's the other part that he wasn't telling you, is that when he was sitting there staring at me from the 3rd row, my co-chair leans over, do you know that guy boring holes into your skull? Because he was just staring, and I have no idea who that is. But when Darren walked in, there was something about his countenance. I watch people as they come in and think, oh, I got to go talk to her, and because they feel heavy. He looked like he felt uncomfortable, but there was something so great about his countenance. And so I went back to that mutual friend who he came with and asked questions. And then something I've never done before, I said, will you introduce us? I don't do that. And so there was something from the very beginning that was, yeah. But then again, then all my hopes and dreams were dashed because he's so much younger than I am. So, yeah, but the whole story, it's really sweet.
It's a beautiful story. And we thank you so much for sharing it with us and with our podcast audience, because we know that there's lots of people umming and ahhing about all these questions of like, will it work? Can you do it? You know, the fear of divorce and what should you do and how are the kids going to cope? And so we know they're questions. So we appreciate you being so open and honest with us. And thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yes. And are you speaking in November, early November?
BYU Life After Divorce Conference. We're not speaking together. I'm speaking on the wonderful superpower of forgiveness.
Oh, awesome.
And doing and offering some really great insights and tools of forgiving others, mostly forgiving others. And Darren?
I am speaking about whether we're scorched or refined, thriving in life and marriage. Whether we're burned or refined. Yeah.
A little bit of both sometimes, huh?
and if I could, I know we've been a long time. There's 2 things that I think really can help people as they go through this process. Early on in our time talk together, one of the things that I shared with Lorraine was that whatever happens, it's going to be right. Because if we are committed, and something that I talk about in the Jerks class and I speak about pretty regularly to lots of church groups, especially, but even secular groups, right? There are 5 key relationships, and you are the single most important person in your world, and you know who you are and why you are by your relationship to your Heavenly Father. That's why the thumb goes up. So the first great commandment is to love God. The second is to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, this is a universal sign for love. Some people, it's a universal sign for loser. But if that person outside of yourself, the significant other that you are in a relationship, your eternal companion, knows who they are and why they are because they're committed to God first, right? This is going to be a really great relationship. If not, it's going to struggle. And from that relationship, we can have children. And when children are raised by parents who know who they are and why they are, the children thrive. And if they don't, the children struggle. And then you have extended family. Use the middle finger for that. And a lot of people think that's a different reason, but really it's because that's the largest group that you're closely connected to. And then we have others. That's why we wear a ring on that finger, to signify to others that we have a committed relationship. And the last of the 5 key relationships is stuff. And if the stuff becomes the most important thing, the other relationships suffer. But if we have those 5 key relationships in order of priority, the stuff enhances it and makes it better. And so many people think, well, if I could just get this relationship, everything's going to be okay. But if you don't have this relationship, nothing's going to be okay.
Love that.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for being part of our podcast today. Thank you, Kim, for being here. And we hope everybody's enjoyed this.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.